it's difficult to buy a Rolex these days. You can't, very few authorized dealers will let you walk in unless you're Kevin O'Leary, I suppose.
For decades, Rolex has been synonymous with luxury and prestige, commanding top prices for its iconic timepieces. But recently, Chinese manufacturers have shaken the luxury watch industry to its core by exposing closely guarded secrets. In response, Rolex has slashed prices, prompting many to ask, what were they trying to hide? Join us as we uncover the truth behind this drama. The truth behind Rolex's reputation. Many individuals have long thought that wearing a Rolex watch signified owning a high-quality product from Switzerland. The image of skilled craftsmen meticulously handcrafting each part in a serene workshop has been promoted for years. However, a new narrative has emerged, revealing a different reality from first-hand accounts on the factory floor, videos from unknown sources, and opinions shared online. They claimed that not all Rolex watches were originally made in Switzerland. Some of them could have been produced in factories in Shenzhen, China, alongside many others. This wasn't about counterfeit or fake items. The components on display were not cheap imitations. They closely resembled authentic Rolex parts, suggesting they could be authentic. Shenzhen, famous for its large technology industry, had also become the leading hub for watch production. According to reports, more than 95% of the world's watches are now manufactured in China, with a significant portion coming from Shenzhen specifically. The watches being produced in Shenzhen are not low-quality imitations, but high-quality pieces that are comparable to luxury Swiss watches that cost thousands of dollars. These watches are made with exquisite materials like sapphire glass, ceramic bezels, and solid metal bracelets. People began to take notice. TikTok influencers started posting videos of unboxing fake watches that closely resembled expensive ones. They mentioned that these knockoff watches were likely made in the same factories as the authentic ones, but without the official branding. Ex-employees from these Chinese factories started revealing the truth. They recounted making parts for well-known watch brands such as Omega, Tag Heuer, Tissot, and maybe even Rolex. The quiet rumors turned into a big deal that even the high-end luxury industry couldn't ignore. Rolex surprised everyone by quietly changing the prices of some of their models, leaving collectors and longtime fans shocked. Many questioned whether this was a signal of wrongdoing or just the start of something even more significant. As the world looked to Switzerland for solutions, the real answer was in China all along. Shenzhen, a city in China, was not a minor player in the watch industry. It was a major player. In fact, some factories in Shenzhen began selling watches directly to the public. This meant that people could purchase watches that were made with high-quality materials and sometimes even the exact same parts as luxury stores without having to go through a fancy retailer. A big question was brought up about how watches labeled Swiss-made could still be mostly made in China. A rule allowed a watch to be labeled as Swiss as long as 60% of its value was created in Switzerland. This value was not based on the actual watch, but on its calculated worth, which could include various factors like research, marketing, or assembling the movement in Geneva. Someone has the ability to construct the majority of a watch in China, send it over to Switzerland, and then insert the movement there. Just this small final task is all it takes to give the watch the luxury designation. Everything else involves establishing the brand and telling a compelling story. For some individuals, this was a game changer. For others, it simply validated their existing beliefs. The truth wasn't fresh. It was merely concealed behind flashy advertisements and magazine spreads. These advertisements played a significant role in maintaining the secrecy for an extended period. High-end companies invested substantial amounts in magazines and online platforms to maintain their pristine reputation. Numerous journalists, bloggers, and influencers received complimentary items like watches, luxurious hotel accommodations, and access to exclusive gatherings. Standing up against these brands meant jeopardizing all of those perks. However, individuals still began to speak out. What is the truth behind the Swiss-made label? Is it truly what it seems, or is there more to it? Behind the Swiss-made label. The change did not begin in formal meetings or corporate offices. It began through discussions on the internet, like Reddit and TikTok. People who love watches, collect them, or used to work in the industry started talking and sharing their observations. They began to ask challenging questions and exchange information. A man who used to work for a famous Swiss brand said he lost his job for asking too many questions. He was fixing old watches from the 1970s and found that some parts had Asian factory codes on them. He showed pictures of watch parts, like bracelets, dials, and hands that were clearly from China. Even though the Swiss brand claimed the watches were Swiss-made, the parts were from China. He mentioned that occasionally, the inner workings of a watch, known as the movement, are not from Switzerland. They might be a low-cost quartz component worth $5, inserted at the end just to meet the criteria. This realization can diminish the allure of luxury for those who value the idea of handcrafted perfection. Many popular brands were engaging in the same deceptive marketing tactics. They used expensive advertising to make it seem like they had a long history and quality craftsmanship. But in reality, their products were made through modern, global, industrial processes. However, not everyone was shocked. Some had always thought that luxury branding focused more on appearance than quality. But for new customers, or those working hard to afford their first high-end watch, this was disappointing. Individuals desired something authentic and unique, not a mass-produced item marketed with fancy advertising. However, major companies continued to remain silent. Luxury watch companies had a lot of money, and various media platforms relied on their advertisements. Revealing the truth about them could result in losing financial support. Therefore, smaller voices began to spread the truth. YouTubers, TikTokers, and even employees from the factories began sharing their experiences. One well-known creator revealed that the Shenzhen factories were no longer being secretive. In fact, some were openly displaying their products and even allowing customers to make personalized orders. They clarified that these were not counterfeit watches, but rather genuine watches without a well-known brand name. The quality and components were authentic, and the prices were significantly lower than those found in upscale boutiques in Geneva. This movement did not aim to destroy the luxury industry. Rather, it sought to promote transparency. Consumers had a right to know the origins of the products they were purchasing. If a watch was primarily manufactured in China, it was important for customers to be aware of this fact. They should be able to make informed decisions instead of being influenced by fancy advertisements and expensive marketing campaigns. And the best part? This tide of honesty united people. Fans of watches who used to feel excluded due to high prices were now finding a different way. A way where excellence did not have to be expensive. Where factories in Shenzhen could produce beautiful work without the need for a middleman. Many people were not interested in giving up luxury, but rather in discovering a different kind of luxury that valued honesty, inclusivity, and admiration for craftsmanship regardless of its origin. As more people within the industry spoke out and more stories were shared, the luxury world began to change. Maybe not visibly, but there were changes happening behind the scenes. People were paying attention, becoming more knowledgeable, and the misconceptions were gradually disappearing. To understand the claims made against Rolex, we first need to look at how the brand started and how it rose to popularity. The gentle rise of Rolex. In 1905, two men in London started a company that would have a significant impact on the world of watches. Alfred Davis and his brother-in-law Hans Wilsdorf founded a small company called Wilsdorf and Davis. Initially, they imported Swiss watch movements from Hermann Egler and assembled them in English cases made by companies like Denison. These watches were then sold to jewelers who would add their branding to the dials. The watches were aesthetically pleasing and bore a small hallmark with the initials W and D on the inside of the cases to indicate their origin. 3 years afterward, in 1908, Wilsdorf took a significant step. He chose to officially trademark the name Rolex. He wanted a name that would be easy to pronounce in any language, short enough to fit on a watch, and reminiscent of winding a watch. Additionally, he established a new office in La Chaux-de-Fonds, Switzerland, a central location in the watchmaking industry. As time went by, the company grew larger. Rolex produced special watches called trench watches during World War I for soldiers to keep time in tough conditions. In November 1915, the company changed its name to Rolex Watch Company. Limited, things were going well, but in 1919, the business faced challenges in England due to heavy taxes on luxury items like watches and high export charges on materials. Wilsdorf decided to relocate the company to Geneva, Switzerland. The company's name changed to Montres Rolex SA before finally becoming Rolex SA. After moving their headquarters to Switzerland, Wilsdorf took on a new challenge. During that time, many watches were not able to keep out dust and water, leading to damage to the inner workings of the watch and causing it to stop working. Wilsdorf wanted to find a solution to this problem. In 1926, Rolex collaborated with a watch case maker to produce a waterproof and dust-proof watch called the Oyster. This watch had a tightly sealed case that provided better protection for the inner mechanisms compared to other watches on the market. The inspiration for this design came from a patent originally developed by Paul Perregaux and Georges Perret, which Rolex acquired in order to create the Oyster. Wilsdorf wanted people to believe the Oyster watch was truly waterproof, so Rolex tested it by putting the watches in fish tanks and placing them in shop windows. Many people were surprised and impressed by this demonstration. The most significant moment came in 1927 when a British swimmer named Mercedes Gleitze wore a Rolex Oyster around her neck while swimming across the English Channel. She swam for over 10 hours, and the watch remained intact, making a lasting impression. To celebrate this achievement, Rolex advertised the story in full-page ads in the Daily Mail newspaper for a month. This was the first time someone had publicly shown that a wristwatch could be both fashionable and durable. A few years later, in 1931, Rolex took a major leap forward by introducing the perpetual rotor. This innovative feature was a small plate inside the watch that moved with gravity, helping the watch to wind itself automatically. As a result of this breakthrough, the watch was renamed the Oyster Perpetual. This marked the first instance of a self-winding watch functioning in such a clever and straightforward manner. This advancement made it simpler and more convenient to operate a Rolex, showcasing the company's ongoing commitment to improvement. Wilsdorf always remembered the importance of giving back. When his wife passed away in 1944, he established the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. This foundation was set up to hold all his shares in Rolex, ensuring that the company's success would benefit those in need, even after his passing. Upon his death in 1960, the foundation took over Rolex SA and has been running the company while also quietly contributing to charitable causes. But what's so unique about this brand, and why is it so expensive? The timeless magic of Rolex. Each Rolex watch has a story to tell, not just about time passing by, but also about the incredible skill, creativity, and long-standing reputation behind the brand. Every Rolex watch has a unique serial number that carries the identity and history of that specific timepiece. Rolex began assigning serial numbers back in 1926, following a sequence. However, in 1954, the company decided to reset the count and start again from zero. By 1987, Rolex started adding a letter to the 6-digit serial number. In 2010, they made another change by using random serial numbers, making each watch more unique and harder to replicate. Although Rolex is mainly known for its mechanical watches, not many are aware of the brand's involvement in the development of quartz technology. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Rolex collaborated with 15 other Swiss companies to produce the Beta 21 quartz movement. The Rolex quartz date 5100 was one of their first quartz models. Rolex did not stop at that, though. Following 5 years of dedication, the company introduced its quartz movement, the 5035 and 5055, which were featured in the Oyster Quartz line of watches. Rolex always strived for top-quality materials. In 2005, they unveiled their first ceramic bezel, known as Cerachrom, on the GMT Master 2. This was a big advancement. Unlike aluminum bezels that faded, the ceramic bezels were scratch-resistant and color-fast. This innovative material soon made its way into other popular sports models such as the Submariner, Sea Dweller, Deep Sea, and Daytona. Rolex is famous for using a unique kind of stainless steel. Starting in 1985, they have been using 904 L-grade steel, which is shiny when polished and tough against corrosion. However, it is slightly softer and more prone to scratching compared to the 316L steel commonly used by other Swiss watch brands. Rolex did not limit themselves to just one brand. In 1946, the founder of Rolex, Hans Wilsdorf, launched Tudor. His goal was to provide a high-quality watch, similar to Rolex, but more affordable. Unlike Rolex watches, which were constrained by their in-house movement production, Tudor initially used movements from another company, but maintained the same level of quality in their cases and bracelets. Since 2015, Tudor has made significant advancements by developing their movements, starting with the Tudor North Flag, and later updating other models such as the Pelagos and the Heritage Black Bay. Even though Tudor watches were no longer available in the US in 2004, they eventually returned in 2013 and made their way back to the UK in 2014. Today, Tudor watches can be found in various countries, offering a fashionable and durable option to Rolex. Rolex has 3 main collections: Oyster Perpetual, Professional, and Cellini. The Cellini line is for formal events, while the Oyster Perpetual is more recognizable to many. The Oyster line includes bracelets like Jubilee, Oyster, President, and Pearl Master, each with its unique style. These watches are crafted from various materials like stainless steel, different gold shades, and even platinum. In the UK, the starting price for a stainless steel GMT Master 2 was £9,350, with diamond-studded models priced even higher. Hans Wilsdorf came up with a new series of watches called Air King in 1958 as a tribute to RAF pilots. The Air King went through changes over time, and in 2007, it had a certified movement in a 34mm case. It was considered the least expensive Oyster Perpetual model until it was temporarily stopped in 2014. However, Rolex reintroduced it in 2016 with a new 40mm case and some features from the Rolex Milgauss. Even with these improvements, it still cost less than the Explorer, which is similar in size. Rolex often uses the names Rolex Oyster or Rolex Oyster Perpetual in their catalogs. These names show the brand's history and how it has evolved since the first waterproof Rolex Oyster was made in 1926. Different sizes of watches in this line have different movements. For instance, the 39mm models come with the caliber 3132, which has a parachrome hairspring and Paraflex shock absorbers, while the smaller models have the caliber 2231. The Date 34 model includes a date feature and gives the choice of a white gold bezel and diamonds. While some Date and Datejust models might appear alike, the Datejust comes in bigger sizes and offers more options for customization. Both lines have the same movement and make changing the date simple without needing to adjust the time. In 2009, Rolex introduced the Datejust 2 with a 41mm case and a fresh movement. In 2016, they introduced the Datejust 41, which had a sleeker appearance. Rolex watches are made to withstand tough conditions. The Submariner and Sea Dweller models were specifically created for deep-sea divers. The Sea Dweller even had a special valve to release helium during decompression, which was developed with the help of DOXA. Explorers often relied on Rolex watches as their trusted companions in difficult terrains. The Explorer and Explorer 2 models were specifically designed for adventurous expeditions in rugged locations. The original Explorer was created to commemorate the iconic 1953 Everest climb, even though Edmund Hillary wore a Smith's watch during the ascent. The Explorer 2 distinguished itself with a bigger case, an additional date feature, and a distinctive orange hand to assist in timekeeping, in environments where distinguishing between night and day was challenging. Pilots loved the GMT Master Watch, which was made in 1955 for Pan Am Airways. This watch helped them keep track of both local time and GMT, which was very important for navigating during long flights. Rolex watches have set records at auctions, with one notable example being a Rolex Daytona given to Paul Newman by his wife that sold for over $17.75 million in 2017. Another Daytona known as the Unicorn was sold for nearly $6 million in 2018. The most expensive Rolex created by the company is the GMT Ice, priced at $485,350. But why did Rolex suddenly cut their prices despite being known for their high cost? Were they threatened by the accusations made against them? The hidden story behind Rolex price change. For many years, Rolex was more than just a brand. It represented success, accuracy, and being exclusive. It was highly respected, and only a few people were able to afford it, while many could only dream of owning one. People understood that Rolex watches would always be pricey and never go on sale. Each year, the prices continued to rise without any hesitation. However, a surprising turn of events occurred. Rolex made a surprising move by reducing their prices without any big marketing campaigns or announcements. The changes were not widespread, but some models were now being sold for up to 20% less. This change raised questions among collectors and enthusiasts about the reasons behind it. Rolex has always stood out for its unique approach. Instead of using lower prices to increase sales like most companies, Rolex did the opposite by gradually raising prices, making their watches more exclusive and valuable. Each price increase made the watches even more desirable. People did not just purchase a Rolex to know the time. They bought it to celebrate a significant accomplishment and showcase their success. Wearing a Rolex symbolized belonging to a world of achievement and sophistication. However, Rolex was also meticulous in managing its brand image. Instead of saturating the market with watches, the company intentionally limited supply to be just below demand. This strategy led to waiting lists and increased the desirability of their watches. Customers felt a sense of pride when they were able to purchase one, and some were willing to pay extra on resale platforms to avoid the wait. Rolex was designed to be exclusive in every aspect, from its designs to how it was distributed. When someone wore a Rolex, it wasn't just a watch to them, it was a symbol of their success. After many years, why would Rolex lower their prices? Some believe it's because of new information coming to light. Online watch groups and luxury dealers have started sharing reports. People have noticed certain Rolex models, like the Submariner and GMT Master 2, are now slightly cheaper in some places. The price decrease is not huge, but it has attracted attention. A video from China went viral, showing cases and bezels that closely resembled Rolex parts being shipped in large quantities from a warehouse in Guangdong. These were not just inexpensive imitations, but looked very similar to the authentic products. This was a major issue for a brand that prided itself on exclusivity and scarcity. All of a sudden, the concept of exclusivity was no longer as strong as it once seemed. Some individuals were now able to obtain nearly identical products at a much lower price. Instead of being sold in sketchy locations, these items were accessible through private communication groups on Telegram, sellers on WeChat, and contacts on WhatsApp. The sellers refrained from labeling the products as replicas and instead used terms like factory homage, same line release, and OEM builds. This indicated that the items were manufactured in the same factories using the same components, just without the final inspection or stamp of approval. A whistleblower revealed that some suppliers were using extra materials from official orders to make and sell finished watches without Rolex's approval. These watches were not fake, but they weren't officially authorized by Rolex. This brought some clarity to the mystery surrounding luxury watches. What Rolex's price drop revealed about luxury. The luxury watch world was rocked by a sudden change that affected brands like Rolex, Swatch Group, Richemont, and LVMH. These companies believed their products were valuable due to their rarity and uniqueness. If perceptions shifted, everything could be different. Most luxury watch companies typically made profits ranging from 10% to 20%, which was considered decent but not surprising. In comparison, tech giants like Apple and Microsoft had profit margins of 30% or higher. This made luxury watch companies seem less greedy in some people's eyes. Rolex was doing well and was one of the top watchmakers globally, despite being a non-profit organization. The company did not share its financial information publicly, so the actual profit was unknown, but experts believed it was still thriving. Many people were unaware of the true production cost of making a Rolex watch. According to experts in the industry, a Rolex watch that was sold for $6,000 may have only cost between $1,200 to $1,500 to produce. This meant that buyers were paying around 5 times the actual production cost. Unlike other brands such as Christopher Ward, who were transparent about their pricing and never charged more than 3 times the production cost, Rolex kept their pricing information private. It was believed that Omega charged around 4 times the production cost, but Rolex remained silent and continued to be a pricey option. People were not only purchasing the watch for its physical attributes, they were buying into the reputation, status, and sense of belonging to an exclusive group. This is the allure that Rolex has built up over the years. It's more than just a combination of metal and glass. It represents a fantasy. However, there is another perspective to consider. Some watches that appear very similar can be purchased for only a couple $100s. Although they may seem attractive in photographs and under certain lighting conditions, they are not authentic. These replicas are typically made with inferior materials, resulting in a less refined appearance. The inner workings of the watch do not function smoothly, producing a noticeable ticking noise and an uncomfortable sensation. The metal used is prone to scratching easily, and the water resistance is either low or non-existent. Additionally, the weight and luster of the watch do not measure up to the real thing. While they may deceive someone from afar, upon closer inspection, the discrepancies become evident. For a lot of people, owning a Rolex watch became more attainable through unofficial means. This raised a significant question. Are expensive watches truly worth the money? The solution was not easy to find. If you purchase a watch thinking it will be a great example of engineering, you might end up feeling let down. Not all pricey watches are crafted with passion and attention to detail. Some are put together using existing components and then sold at a much higher price. The name of the brand is what primarily attracts buyers. If people understood the value beyond just purchasing a watch, but also the emotion it brings, then perhaps it would justify the cost. By buying a luxury watch, they were investing in the recognition and status it brought. Some individuals found that feeling to be priceless, making the high price worth it. But how do you think Rolex will fight back? Or will they choose to remain silent? How Rolex fought back after its secrets were exposed. Rolex was facing pressure from Chinese manufacturers who were revealing secrets about luxury watch production. Instead of staying silent, the Swiss brand, known for its secrecy, responded firmly. They took legal action, implemented brand protection strategies, and adjusted their pricing to protect their image and market control. When people started hearing about how Chinese factories were making luxury watch parts that looked almost identical to Rolex's, the company's reputation for top-notch quality was in jeopardy. These were not typical fake watches. They were high-quality replicas that were so well made that even collectors had a hard time distinguishing them from the real ones. Every little detail, the weight, and the way they moved all seemed incredibly similar to the genuine products. Rolex started to reassess its worldwide plan after facing this challenge. Initially, they focused on addressing the root cause of the issue. Legal teams were mobilized to identify and address the makers of the most realistic counterfeit watches. This effort was not only to safeguard their products, but also to uphold the reputation and values associated with the Rolex brand. Whenever there was evidence of intellectual property infringement or unauthorized use of Rolex branding by counterfeiters, legal proceedings were initiated. Furthermore, the company took legal measures against individuals and platforms sharing confidential information about watchmaking, working to prevent further leaks and potential harm. At the same time, Rolex realized that simply taking legal action would not solve the issue. The company needed to address increasing consumer uncertainty and ensure that customers still found value in buying genuine Rolex watches. This is where pricing played a crucial role. In the past, Rolex would raise its prices annually, emphasizing that each watch was not only a timepiece, but also an investment. However, the market was changing. Many individuals were opting for fake watches that looked very similar or were exploring the growing second-hand market, where prices were more adjustable. In order to remain competitive, Rolex made changes to its strategy. The company only slightly raised prices for its popular steel models to keep loyal customers happy and prevent them from being put off by increasing costs. On the other hand, Rolex increased prices more significantly for its gold and precious metal models, targeting buyers who valued uniqueness and prestige. This balanced strategy helped Rolex maintain its profit margins and competitiveness in a shifting market. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.